I am leaving my wife tomorrow and I couldn't be happier. I 45 male and my wife 44 female have been married for 10 years. We dated for 6 years before that, and I got a lot of pressure to get married from my parents, her parents. Something in my gut said that this wasn't right. I called it cold feet and did my best to ignore it. We got married. Pretty much the moment the ink was dry on our marriage license, things went south. On our honeymoon, she did nothing but complain I hadn't booked a nicer hotel. In the following months, she wanted a new apartment, a new car, gifts, jewelry, handbags. It was never enough. It's like the moment she got the ring, it stopped being about me and became about what I could give her. I am a doctor. I make good money. Not good enough to support the kind of lifestyle she wants, though. We don't have sex anymore. We don't laugh. We don't talk about anything but money. We have no kids. She said she wanted them before marriage, then changed her mind. Our home looks like a showroom. There is no warmth or joy or even comfort here. I hate it. I hate her. I am a 45-year-old physician and I have barely enough savings to sustain us for 3 months. I want to retire someday. I want to enjoy my life. I rented a cool apartment across town, in a less desirable neighborhood, and there's a stack of idea furniture waiting for me to set it up there. The lease is up on the Mercedes my wife pushed me to lease next month and I will be replacing it with a used Prius. I'm starting therapy next week. I have a divorce attorney who has assured me that the prenup we signed before marriage means I won't have to pay alimony. I hope to leave the higher paying job that my wife insisted I take for something with less hours, sometime in the next year. I am going to ask out the pretty barista who flirts with me every morning. I'm telling her first thing tomorrow. I'm expecting her to cry and beg and demand we try therapy. I don't want any of that. This was never right, and I'm only sorry it took me so long to realize it. I'm sorry I've wasted so much of my life being married to a woman, because I thought it was the right thing. I am so excited. Comments. Comment 1. When I worked in an insurance call center, and someone would call to tell me they're divorcing and need to remove spouse update their address, I would always say, "Oh," in a sad tone, "congratulations." 100% of the time they would laugh hysterically and tell me thanks. They're getting tired of everyone saying they're sorry when it's really one of the best days of their life. My boss pulled a random call in a team meeting once and it was one of these. She paused the call and awkwardly laughed and asked me not to say that anymore. She then asked everyone for advice from me on what I should say. I said, "All right, I'll keep that in mind, but let's hear the rest of the call and see if you think I should stop saying this." Because his reaction is the reaction I get 100% of the time when I say this. They hear him laugh and say, "Yeah, she turned rotten really quick. I'm glad someone is finally congratulating me. It's a good day, not a bad day." I told them this is the response I always get to that, and that the spouse calling to remove the other from the policy is usually the one who initiated the divorce. My boss just sat there for a minute, jaw dangling, and said, "Don't change a thing. If it works, it works." Comment 2. My very wealthy surgeon uncle divorced his incredible wife, who had supported his career and raised his amazing daughters. It was a huge shock to the family, but it turned out both parties said they were terribly unhappy and had different priorities, and had tried a lot of solutions that didn't work. She very rightfully and deservingly got half of everything, and a chunk of his retirement. He married an incredibly tacky younger woman absolutely made of red flags and had more children. Both parties are now extremely happy in life. People are weird. And I don't think Op is creepy. I think he just wants something different. And that's okay. Main update. First of all, damn. I didn't expect the first post to blow up. I really was getting it off my chest and expected a few good luck comments and not much more. I know a lot of people were asking for an update, so here goes. Usually when I wake up, I go for a run or a bike ride. While I'm gone, my wife gets up, gets dressed, gets a smoothie going, whatever. This morning I paced the kitchen, rehearsing what I had to tell her over and over again. When she finally came down, I felt oddly calm. I wasn't expecting to be panicked exactly, but apprehensive at least. I told her I needed to speak to her. She gave me an aha, and didn't look up from the coffee machine. Then I just came out with it. I told her I was leaving, and that I wanted a divorce. That we hadn't been happy in a long time, and I felt as though she didn't care about me, or my emotional needs. Pretty much instantly, the gaslighting began. She cried that I never get her flowers anymore, that I don't do enough to support her, that I don't care if she's happy. I brought up the fact that I suggested therapy over a year ago, and she agreed, but then made excuse after excuse not to go. I brought up the times she completely ignored the budget we worked on. I told her how it made me feel when she dismissed me when I tried to tell her how I was feeling. The crying escalated then, along with begging for a chance to make this right, to go to therapy, that she would be better. It went like I thought it would go, and I felt absolutely nothing. I don't care anymore. Whatever I once felt for her is just dead and gone, and she might as well have been a second cousin sobbing about her marriage for all the connection I felt to it. Eventually I just got fed up and walked out. She has been blowing up my phone with calls and texts which range from angry to begging to threatening. I started getting calls from her mother and mine too, but at the end of the day, I spoke briefly to my mother and calmly explained that I was sorry she didn't hear it from me, but my wife was sucking me dry financially and emotionally and I couldn't do it anymore. She was surprisingly supportive. I'm currently in my new apartment. I unrolled the mattress in a box and went to Walmart for sheets. I ate Thai takeout for dinner at the kitchen counter and watched a bit of Netflix on my computer. I have everything I need for the next few days. My wife is getting served tomorrow. I keep expecting the sadness to set in, but it hasn't. I feel like 1,000 pounds are off my shoulders and suddenly my future is full of possibilities. I'm going to travel. I'm going to try new restaurants. I'm going to take a job that actually makes me happy and proud instead of rich. Much to the internet's chagrin, I will ask out the barista. Because despite unpopular opinion, she is both age appropriate, it's her family's business, and I do have the interpersonal skills to recognize the difference between customer service and actual connection. Cheers, everyone. I'm going to have a beer, and then take a walk around my new neighborhood. Reminder, I am not the original poster. Note, because a lot of people are commenting on asking the barista out thing, I will paste comment op made about that. Alright folks, I've gotten a lot of comments begging me not to ask out the barista, as it's her job to be nice to me. I didn't really get into the relationship I have with her, because I didn't think it was relevant to the divorce. But here goes. I met her about a year ago. She's 30. I don't usually wear a wedding ring, because my job requires me to scrub regularly. She actually asked me out, invited me to a food truck festival in town a few months into knowing each other. I said I was married and she was embarrassed. Since then, we've had a bit of a running joke going where she asks me so, still married. My current plan is to reply not for long and see what happens. I appreciate the internet's apprehension. In truth, I would probably say the same thing if I didn't know the backstory, but I promise I'm not a creep. Now, for the next story. Struggling with the impact of my wife's weight on our relationship. Alright, before I get called an asshole, let me explain. I love my wife. I think she's incredibly beautiful, and even more so after she gave birth to our son 3 years ago. The problem is that she put on a good amount of baby weight, obviously, and never lost it. She instead started to gain more weight and was overall pretty depressed. I initially assumed it was PPD and suggested she go to therapy for it. She went to therapy and got some antidepressants. It took her a while to find the right ones, and she's been fine mentally since she found them. Physically is a different story, however. She has continued over the past 3 years to gain weight. The problem isn't anymore that I'm not attracted to her, but she will die if she continues to gain weight. She is currently 5', about 260 pounds with a BMI close to 50. I don't know what I can do. I feel like I've tried everything. I've asked her to go to the gym with me, go on a diet with me, not buy fast food, have some active hobbies. She's turned down every single one of these ideas. I feel like I don't have any choice but to give her an ultimatum. Either she genuinely tries to lose the weight or I leave. I can't watch the women I love and mother of my child slowly kill herself. I don't want to be the dude who gives an ultimatum, but I see no other choice. I guess I just wanted to ask if I'm being an asshole, or if there's any other way I could go about this. Edit. For everyone in the comments telling me you can be overweight and healthy, you're right. But no, you cannot be obese and healthy, at least not long term. Heart disease runs in my wife's family, and while your weight might not affect you, being overweight is directly linked to heart disease. I understand weight loss isn't easy. I used to be overweight. But my concern isn't that she not the same way she looked when we got together. It's that she may not live to see our son become a teenager. Comments. Comment 1. I am obese, and it had caused massive health issues for myself. A lot of the issues started when I was first put on mental health medication. I was finally not so depressed I wanted to die, but had gained 90 pounds in 7 months due to the medication. My eating habits hadn't changed much. I still went on long walks, but the weight kept coming on. I begged my doctors to switch meds, and guess what they did? Added another 39 pounds. I was 30, and utterly miserable. I wouldn't leave my house and just ate more. My mental and physical health were terrible, and finally one day I woke up and forced myself to get on a scale, and I weighed 360 pounds. My first thought was pretty much what you would expect. And my second was, fuck this, I am taking control of my body. I didn't think I was going to make it to 30, and I damn sure wasn't going to utterly ruin my body by not doing anything. It's been almost 9 years and there have been major setbacks. I got 120 pounds off, and then need 3 major surgeries back to back that made me damn near immobile, and still physically disabled after 3 years. But I've kept off the 100 pounds, and I am finally been allowed to start really working out more again. Thankfully, Ray Gym in town has an indoor pool, and water exercise is best for my joint replacements and other bone issues. I do eat pretty healthy. I eat no fast food. I live an hour away from any anyway, and I try to cook as healthy as I can with what I have to use. I'm on EBT and live in a food desert. I have to make big meals that can last and be hearty and as healthy as I can. I quit drinking soda again. I've given up coffee as well. I can feel Q difference already. My shrink flat out knows that if the main side effect of a drug is weight gain, I will simply not take it. I do lots of therapy and still take meds, just different kinds for mood stabilizer, etc. The only reason I even looked at that scale that day is my best friend told me the day before my 30th b-day that they just can't be my friend anymore. That they love me so much but they cannot watch me activity kill myself like this. I know this was a terrible conversation for her to have with me. And even at the time I knew she meant all of it from a place of actual love. Of course it killed the friendship. My mental illness didn't want to hear that. I didn't want to hear that. We only started really talking again a couple of years later after I had lost a good amount of weight. And my mom, who was very overweight and had died tragically, and suddenly in my arms due to her weight and smoking. I also quit smoking. When your friends and family honestly love you, they will actually have the terrible, hard, gut-wrenching conversation with you about stuff you don't want to hear. They may put up the boundary of I can't keep doing this, and you know what? That's actually okay. They shouldn't have to sit around and watch the person they love just utterly ruin themselves with food, drink, drugs, etc. There is such a difference between honestly loving a person and wanting to help them being a dick, who doesn't really care either way, and just says mean things to be mean. I am so glad I've talked to his wife, and that she saw what he truly meanie. And has taken the road to be healthy to be there for their son. Comment 2. Yeah, the whole Hayes body positivity fat acceptance movement is a creepy nutty cult, and the people who follow it are so freaking extreme and exhausting. I ended up in the ICU last year, because of weight-related medical emergency. I've since lost over 100 pounds and guess what? I'm much healthier and moving around is much easier. Yes, you can technically be obese and healthy, but the real question will always be how long you'll be healthy for. The health problems will catch up to you in the end. Yet they keep attracting more people because of course people love hearing that it's not their fault. People give up trying to be healthy because they all say that trying to lose weight is pointless, etc. Those movements are actually doing a lot of harm. Update. So I made a post about 5 months ago because I was getting past the point of no return with my wife's weight. Now expectedly I got called an asshole and a dickhead and every other name under the book for even mentioning it. But I also got some real good feedback and decided before I made any real decision I would sit her down and let her know how I was truly feeling. Because at that point we had multiple conversations addressing it, but none of them lead anywhere. So after we put my son to sleep I asked my wife if we could talk for a moment in the kitchen. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the conversation was probably the hardest one I've ever had. Because despite what everyone believed, I do love my wife. Now I don't want to get into every detail, but the basis of the conversation was that I needed her to at least try and be healthier. I also think she needed to hear how serious I was about this, and when I told her I was even thinking about separating, I think it really put the nail in the coffin. It's been about 5 months since then, and I'm proud to say my wife has lost 35 fucking lbs. I am so proud of her, it's fucking ridiculous. The first month was a fucking hurdle and a half, but now she's going steady and losing weight at a healthy moderate rate. Recently she even started to exercise with me. In the morning I usually jog, but since her knees are somewhat shot, 3 days a week we go walk a mile or two together and either talk or just listen to music together. I know it sounds corny to say, but she even seems happier and her confidence is coming back as well. Well, this was my little update and I wanted to finish it with thanking anyone who actually gave me advice on my first post. Now, for the next story. My ex-husband's daughter just announced her engagement. What should I do with their family's heirloom ring? My ex-husband and I married too young. It was a classic white wedding with vows and the tradition of passing down a family ring. My ex was given his great-grandmother's wedding ring to give to me on our wedding day. We had a wonderful start, but we both really weren't ready to settle. He cheated on me and my drinking turned into alcoholism. We divorced and the ring was never really discussed, so I've kept it all this time. We married at 19 and divorced by 22. Luckily we didn't have kids. We went our separate ways. He found someone and remarried and had a girl and boy. My journey has been harder. Alcoholism took many things from me, but I kept the old wedding ring. Never pawned, traded, or lost it. Even during some really dark times. Even though my marriage ended, it was like a memory of better time. I've gotten clean, and so far I'm on a long winning streak, getting my life put back together. Through the gossip lines I found out my ex is still married, and his daughter, their oldest, just got engaged. I still have his great-grandmother's ring. He had talked with me before we even married how he wanted to pass it down to his daughter one day. We haven't talked once after all these years. I don't know if he still wants his daughter to have this ring. Maybe he's forgotten about it. I feel conflicted what to do. It wasn't a good ending. We were so young and stupid and mutually overly entitled. Should I get in touch? Or let sleeping dogs lie? Mail it as a wedding gift with a card anonymously? Or say it's from me? Edit. Thank you for all your kindness. I will definitely get in touch with him and let him decide where we go from there. Hopefully he'll want to meet face to face. It would be nice to see him after all this time. I'll keep this account up and will give an update if anything happens. Comments. Comment 1. I have a similar story, so I'll share a quick version of it here. Although it has to do with a book, not anything as fancy as an engagement ring. Back in high school, I briefly dated a guy named who was an avid writer and bookworm. One of his most prized possessions was a copy of a book signed by Anne Rice. It was given to him in a very dark time in his life, one he never thought he would recover from. I don't want to go into too much detail, but he was chronically ill. He let me borrow it to read. But the thing is, he broke up with me before I finished reading it and never gave it back. At first I kept it out of spite. Then I just didn't know what to do with it and tucked it away somewhere. Fast forward about 10 years. I just broke up with a man I had been dating for the last 6. It wasn't a messy breakup, we were both ready to move on. While in the process of packing up to move, I found the book, and felt awful for having it all these years. I got in touch with an old friend, who in turn was able to send the book back to him for me. I wanted to apologize, but I also did not want to reach out to him, so I wrote a letter about how I felt, and how sorry I was. I debated for a while whether or not to slip it between the pages of the book for him to find later. In the end, I decided against it, and to leave it be. I wrote that letter to find closure for myself, and I didn't want to disturb the peace. While it's nice to fantasize about how happy he was to get that book back, I know a lot of bad memories probably came up too. I'm just glad it's now with its rightful owner. Comment 2. We probably all know that returning the ring was the right decision, but I hope that Ook comes to feel that it was the right decision for her. I'm sure that she thought of it more than once, and many times over made decisions that she should keep it. Each time, I hope she realized that she wasn't low enough to sell it. I hope that it was for her a symbol of her strength and self-worth. I'm not that bad. I've got this. But now she's strong enough on her path that she no longer needs that touchstone. She is stronger than that diamond is hard. Update. So small recap. My ex-husband and I exchanged wedding vows and I was given his great-grandmother's wedding ring. We divorced as cheating, my drinking in the ring was never discussed, and I ended up saving it as a keepsake all these years as a memory of another life I once had. I'm clean now for a long while, and I recently spoke with a friend who knows of my ex's family and brought up how his daughter recently got engaged. I immediately thought of the ring. It was to be passed down to our daughter if we had children. This being a family heirloom, it compelled me to return it even though it's been decades since my ex and I last spoke and not even sure he'd want it back. After posting here for advice, I decided I needed to do this for his family. I had the ring professionally cleaned at a jeweler and given a pretty box to put it in. While I was there, I took the advice of one commenter and ordered myself a ring. Instead of an inset diamond, I gave mine a ruby. It was my grandmother's name and she never gave up on me, and it seemed fitting considering the other ring belonged to a great-grandmother. I decided to have maybe a cliché engraving of the word forward, because that's how I've made it here to where I am now. By moving forward. My ex lives about 2 hours into town and I had a girlfriend come with me. First we drove by and there weren't any cars, so we grabbed lunch and tried again. This time someone was home, and I decided to leave things be. I had my friend go up to the door and knock. I saw him open the door. She handed him the package and pretty much headed straight back to the car. He didn't say much, she told me. Seemed a bit confused, but thanked her, and that was it. I didn't get to see if it made him happy, or if he called his mother saying the ring found its way home. I imagine him beaming while explaining the ring to his wife as he passes it to his daughter. It is fun to imagine. I also imagine a lot of crying and hugging, but that's probably going too far. I had a note with it. I wrote almost exactly what a commenter suggested. It's been an honor and privilege to be part of the history of this ring. Please accept it back with best wishes to your family and to your daughter's engagement. In a way, I kinda like not knowing how everyone reacted. I can daydream about it, my own fairy tale. I didn't include any way to contact me, just my name. I found him and feel if he wants to, he'll find me. But I don't see much point. Our time was short and it ended, and this is probably the best closure I never expected. It makes my heart lighter. Thank you all for helping and sharing this with me. After the divorce, I had kept the ring and now I've returned it back home. I probably won't ever know how well it was received. But I imagine happiness, and that's what I'm sticking with.